At Thanksgiving, my sister found I had $12.4 million. My family demanded it all for her, said that she deserved it more. I'm using a fake name for obvious reasons, and I've changed some details to stay anonymous. So, I'm Stella, 38, female, and I really need to get this off my chest. You know how some families are? Where one kid can do no wrong and the other feels completely invisible? Yeah. That's been my life. Everything was pretty normal until I was 8. I was an only child, and even though my parents weren't super affectionate, they were around, I guess. My mom would help me with homework, and my dad would sometimes take me fishing on Lake St. Clair. We weren't like the perfect family on television, but things were okay. Then came the night that changed everything. I remember my Aunt Eleanor showing up at 2 a.m. She told me to pack a suitcase because Mom was in the hospital. My sister, Marilyn, was coming, but something was wrong. She wasn't supposed to arrive for another 2 months. The next few weeks were a blur of hospital visits and quiet talks. Marilyn was super tiny, like one of my baby dolls, but she had all these tubes and wires. I wasn't allowed to touch her or get too close. That was the first time I felt it, a wall, like an invisible one, growing between me and the rest of my family. When they finally brought Marilyn home, our house turned into a germ-free zone. Mom became obsessed with germs. I'm talking about super strong cleaning supplies everywhere. Hand sanitizer stations in every room, and constant wiping down of surfaces. Even today, the harsh smell of bleach still makes me feel anxious. But here's what really messed me up. Anytime I showed the smallest sign of being sick, I was shipped off to either Grandma Ember's or Aunt Eleanor's house. I mean, every single time. One sneeze? Pack your bags. A little cough? You're off to see Grandma. At first, I thought it was fun. Grandma Ember would bake cookies, and Aunt Eleanor had a fantastic collection of Nancy Drew books that I was trying to read through. But kids aren't dumb. After a while, you start to figure out what's really going on. You're not being sent on adventures, you're being treated like a danger, as if your whole presence could harm your beloved sister. I tried everything to get their attention in a good way, honestly, everything. I got straight A's. Mom would barely look up from Marilyn's latest doctor's appointment schedule. I won first prize at the science fair with a project about clean energy. Dad just asked if I could store my display board in the garage because Marilyn was allergic to cardboard dust. Is that even a real allergy? The real low point came when I was 12. For months, I'd been practicing for the school talent show, teaching myself to play Bridge Over Troubled Water on the piano. I know, a bit on the nose, but on the night of the show, Marilyn had a 99.1 degree Fahrenheit fever. Guess who didn't have anyone in the audience? Meanwhile, 2 weeks later, the whole family, including both sets of grandparents, showed up for Marilyn's 15-minute flute recital, where she basically butchered hot cross buns. Marilyn quickly learned how to work the system. By the age of 7, she was pretty much over any real health issues, but that didn't stop her acting sick. Headache? Gotta stay home from school. Feeling tired? Someone else, guess who, had to do her chores. Worried about a test? Mom would literally call the school to get the deadline pushed back. I started spending more and more time in my room, buried in books about art history and old stuff. It's funny how things turn out sometimes. My room became my safe spot, mainly because Marilyn claimed she was allergic to my lavender air freshener, so it was the one place she wouldn't go. You know what's messed up? When she faked being sick, a part of me was actually glad. At least I'd get to go to Grandma Ember's, where someone would ask about my day or be interested in what I was doing. Grandma was the one who got me into old jewelry. She had an amazing collection of costume pieces that she let me organize and list. I guess I should have seen that as a sign of things to come. The worst part wasn't even the obvious favoritism, it was how they changed past events to excuse what they did. Marilyn just needs more attention because she had such a tough start. Stella's always been so independent. Stella understands that her sister has special needs. No, I didn't get it. I was a child who couldn't understand why having a good immune system meant I deserved less love. Looking back, I can see how those years shaped me. The constant message that I was somehow unsafe or a hassle to have around doesn't just disappear. But hey, at least it taught me to rely on myself. When no one checks your homework or cares about your wins, you quickly learn to be your own biggest fan. High school. Most people either loved it or hated it. Me? I saw it as my way out. While Marilyn was building her drama queen empire in middle school, I was setting things up for my own escape. And let me tell you, nothing makes you want to achieve more than knowing no one else is going to do it for you. Remember how I said I spent hours sorting Grandma Ember's jewelry collection? That taught me a huge lesson, how important it is to be organized and pay close attention to details. In high school, I handled everything the same way. My desk at home looked like something out of an organization magazine, color-coded notes, perfectly planned study schedules, and everything in its right place. Marilyn made fun of me for it, calling me Rainman. Real great, sis. But here's the thing about being invisible. No one is watching your failures or your wins, so you can do whatever the heck you want. I joined every club that didn't mess with my part-time job at Carson's Diner. Shout out to Esther, the owner, for remembering my birthday when my own parents forgot. Debate team? Check. National Honor Society president? Check. Editor-in-chief of the school newspaper? Check. The debate team was where I truly found my voice. There's something really satisfying about completely tearing apart someone's argument while staying totally calm. It also taught me how to negotiate, which I didn't realize at the time, but it would come in handy later. I won states twice. Marilyn had big soccer games, so my parents couldn't make it to either competition. She was on the C team, she didn't even play the game. What a joke. Junior year was when things really got interesting. I took the SAT and got a perfect score. Not like, oh, pretty good. I mean, perfect, 1,600. Do you know how few people get that? Less than 1%. I remember staring at the results screen for almost 20 minutes. Sure, it was a mistake. I rushed home to tell my parents. Then I thought, this is stupid. Mom was in the Kit Luca helping Marilyn with her English homework. The talk went something like this. Me, all excited, Mom, look. I got a perfect SAT score. Mom. That's nice, honey, but can you keep it down? Marilyn's trying to concentrate. She has a big test tomorrow. Marilyn. Yeah. You're right. Some of us actually have to study. Miss Perfect. Mom, Marilyn, sweetie, don't worry. You're just a different kind of learner. I still have a paper copy of those SAT results somewhere. It never got taped to the fridge. But Marilyn's C+ in English? That baby's paper got prime fridge space, complete with a "we're so proud of you" magnet. College applications. The whole college application thing was a trip. I applied to 15 schools without telling anyone. I wrote all my essays, got my own recommendations, and handled all the financial aid paperwork myself. My guidance counselor, Mr. Luca, was the real MVP. My parents were too busy to help me with the FAFSA, so I stayed late after school. Then the acceptance letters started rolling in: Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Michigan. And each one came with a scholarship offer. I kept them all in a locked box under my bed, knowing what would happen if Marilyn found them. They'd suddenly make everything about her. But if Stella goes to Harvard, I'll be all alone, or some other nonsense like that. The day I got my full ride offer from the University of Michigan, Marilyn joined JV cheerleading. Guess which one got a family celebration? Hint, I ate microwave mac and cheese in my room while they went to Olive Garden. But you know what? That scholarship was my golden ticket. Tuition, room, and board were all covered, plus a book allowance. I could finally leave that house where I was either invisible or a nuisance. The day I got my acceptance letter, I went to my favorite spot at the library. It was a window seat on the 4th floor looking out over the park. I sat there and cried for about an hour. They weren't sad tears, though. They were tears of pure relief. When I told my parents at dinner that I was going to the University of Michigan, their reaction wasn't what I expected. My dad said, "Michigan? But that's so far. What if Marilyn needs you?" My mom replied, "I hope you're not expecting us to help with the costs. Marilyn's cheerleading competitions are super expensive." Marilyn started crying, "Oh my gosh. Finally, can I have your room? I need space for my TikTok videos." The summer before college, I worked double shifts at Carson's Diner to save up cash. Esther, bless her heart, always gave me extra tips and made sure I took home leftover pie when my shifts ended. She also taught me an important lesson: how to tell the real people from the fake ones. Baby, she'd tell me, whether you're in a diner or just living life, the loudest people usually don't have much to say. Move-in day at the University of Michigan. My parents couldn't make it because, you guessed it, Marilyn had a cheerleading competition. Aunt Eleanor drove me instead. She helped me set up my dorm room and gave me a $500 envelope. "Your grandma Ember wanted you to have this," she told me. "She's so proud of you." Later, I found out Grandma had been saving that money from her Social Security checks for months. That first night in my dorm room, I made a promise to myself. I was going to build such a good life that being overlooked would be impossible to ignore. I wasn't doing it to get back at my family, or to prove anything to them. I was doing it for that 8-year-old girl who got sent to Grandma's house just for sneezing. College was the start of something new for me. It flew by in a whirlwind of late-night studies, cheap ramen noodles, and amazing freedom. I graduated from the University of Michigan at the very top of my class. My parents didn't even notice, though. They were too busy helping Marilyn move to her 3rd college in just 2 years. But here's where my story takes a surprising turn. I landed an entry-level job at a fancy auction house in Detroit. I won't use the real name for obvious reasons, but if you're in that line of work, you probably know the place. It was a really fancy establishment, dealing with lots of old money clients and big sales. I started out in their estate sales department, which meant I was listing all the stuff rich people left behind when they died. It wasn't glamorous work, but it paid the rent. The big moment. My first few months were pretty typical, listing endless china sets, sorting through old furniture, and that kind of thing. Then came the Kingston estate. Mrs. Kingston was an old widow who passed away without any kids, leaving behind what everyone thought was just a massive collection of cheap jewelry. We're talking rooms full of the stuff. This is where all those hours at Grandma Ember's really paid off. I was looking through this pile of jewelry when something caught my eye. It was an Art Deco pin. It wasn't flashy, but something about it felt off. It was too heavy for cheap jewelry. The clasp was way too fancy for a fake. I think I spent my whole lunch break that day looking up old jewelry marks and signatures. I even stayed late at the office to use the company's access to online databases for old jewelry. The more I looked, the surer I became. This wasn't costume jewelry, it was the real deal. The problem was, I was the new kid. No one would believe me if I said we had a real treasure. So, I did what the debate team taught me. I carefully put together my case. I spent 2 weeks, using my lunch breaks and evenings, learning everything I could about how to tell if Art Deco jewelry was real. I even dipped into my small savings to pay for an online course on gems. Finally, I got up the nerve to talk to my boss, Mr. Santiago. I brought the whole presentation, with pictures side by side, old papers, the whole 9 yards. The conversation went a bit like this. Me, sir, I think we might have something really important in the Kingston collection. Santiago, barely looking up from his phone, said, Stella, we've already listed those as cheap pieces. Me, you're right. I know, but look at these stamps. They match perfectly with Carter's stamps from 1925. Santiago, finally paying attention. Where did you learn all of this? My reply was, I did some research. To make a long story short, that cheap-looking pin sold for $47,000 at auction. It turned out it was part of a special collection made for some European royalty back in the 1920s. But here's the real turning point, Santiago started to trust me after that. He began giving me other old items to check. Suddenly, my useless hobby of messing with old jewels suddenly became really important. I threw myself into learning everything I could about old jewelry. I took every online course I could afford. I spent weekends at estate sales, researching items. I even started a small notepad to write down different ways to check if things were real. My apartment looked like a crazy jewelry expert's workshop, with walls covered in papers showing old stamps and rules for proving things were real. The auction house started seeing results because of me. I was finding valuable stuff other people missed, making friends with collectors, and understanding how the market worked. My paychecks from sales got bigger. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just getting by, I was actually putting money away. My family, though, still didn't care much. At Sunday dinners, which I still went to, like a total dummy, the conversations usually went something like this. Mom, Stella's still at that antique shop, right? Me? It's an auction house, actually. And yeah, I just checked a super rare Tiffany piece today. Marilyn interrupts. Oh my gosh, speaking of jewelry, you guys have to see this charm bracelet I bought at the mall. But I didn't care anymore. For once in my life, I had found something that was all mine, something I was really good at, something that had nothing to do with being Marilyn's sister. My family saw me as a letdown. But then came the Rothschild collection. This was about 2 years into my job at the auction house. It was a huge estate from a super rich family, and everyone in the business was talking about it. I was on the team that listed their jewelry. That's when I spotted it. An Art Nouveau piece that looked pretty ordinary, but everyone else had overlooked it. I spent 3 days digging into it. I barely slept. It turned out to be from a famous French jeweler's private collection, thought to be lost during World War II. When it sold at auction for $238,000, Santiago called me to his office. I thought I was getting a promotion, but instead, he said something that totally changed everything. Stella, you're too good for this place. You should start your own authentication business. At first, I just brushed it off. Me? Start a business? With what money? But the idea stuck with me. I started taking small freelance jobs, authenticating jewelry on the side. People started talking about how good I was at spotting real treasures. Rich collectors began calling me directly. One night, I was sitting in my small apartment, surrounded by all the jewelry books and tools I'd slowly bought. Then it hit me, I could actually do this. I could build something for myself. So, I did what anyone in my shoes would probably think was crazy. I took out a big loan using my car as collateral. I drained my savings account. I rented a tiny office in a not-so-great part of town. Everyone thought I was nuts. Maybe I was. I turned a storage room above a Chinese restaurant, about the size of a college dorm, into my office. The rent was cheap because it always smelled like Kung Pao chicken. And the Wi-Fi only worked if you sat right by the window. But it was mine. The beginning was tough. The first few months were interesting, which really means terrifying. I'd wake up at 4 a.m. in a cold sweat, figuring out how much time I had left before my savings ran out. The loan payments felt like a chokehold. My office furniture? I bought a card table from Goodwill and found a chair on the curb. Don't worry, I scrubbed it clean. But in the fancy jewelry world, your name and who you know are everything. My time at the auction house gave me both. I started small, authenticating pieces for local antique shops. I charged less than the bigger companies, but people started to notice how careful I was with details. Soon, word got around. 6 months later, something big happened. A dealer I knew from the auction house asked me about a collection of Victorian brooches. The owner wanted them checked before selling. It was a huge collection, with pieces from 3 generations of one family. I worked on it non-stop for 2 weeks, barely sleeping, writing down every detail. I found 2 super rare pieces that everyone else thought were just cheap copies. The owner was so happy with my thorough report that she not only paid me my fee but also gave me a 10% cut when the collection sold. That commission? $86,000? It was more money than I'd made in the past 2 years put together. Suddenly, my phone was ringing off the hook. Rich collectors had heard I was great at finding hidden gems. Lawyers dealing with estates asked for my help with inherited jewelry. Even my old auction house started sending me authentication jobs. I'm pretty sure Santiago was quietly spreading the word for me. Thanks, boss. Getting bigger. By my second year, I hired my first employee, Marilyn. She was a fresh gemology grad who reminded me a lot of myself back then. She was super smart but often ignored because she was quiet. Now, she's my head of authentication and worth her weight in gold. My company grew way faster than I expected. We moved to a real office downtown, bye-bye, Kung Pao chicken smell. I built a team of experts. I got known for finding valuable stuff that people had missed. You wouldn't believe how many important old jewelry pieces get mistaken for cheap fakes in people's attics. Keeping it from my family. But success brought its own problems. The bigger my business got, the tougher it was to keep it a secret from my family. They still thought I worked in some little antique shop. Marilyn would make snarky comments at family dinners. Marilyn would ask, "Stella, I have some old jewelry I was gonna donate to Goodwill. Maybe your little shop would want it?" Me, after just checking a $1.2 million Fabergé piece that morning. "Sure. I'll take a look." Mom would still introduce me to everyone like, "This is my other daughter. She works with old jewelry or something." At the same time, I was being quoted in Forbes magazine, thankfully, under my company's name, and we had just opened our 3rd office. What's weird about all this? Keeping it a secret became kind of fun, like a private joke I had with myself. I'd sit at Sunday dinner in my cheap Target clothes, which were actually Chanel, by the way, listening to Marilyn ramble about her low-level marketing job, all while knowing I'd just finished a deal worth more than her yearly salary. I even started playing little games, like wearing real Harry Winston jewelry to family get-togethers, just to see if anyone would notice. They never did. Marilyn once spent 20 minutes showing off her expensive $200 Michael Kors watch. Meanwhile, I was wearing an old Patek Philippe that was worth more than her car. Handling the growth. But the biggest hurdle was managing how fast we were growing. By year 5, we had offices in Detroit, Chicago, and New York. I was on planes more often than I was in my own bed. We became known for being super private. It turns out many rich folks want their jewels checked without anyone else finding out. The money we were making was insane. We had to hire a big team of money experts, for example. Still, I lived a pretty normal life. I bought a nice house in a good area, but it wasn't overly fancy. I drove a high-end car, but nothing that screamed "look at me." The only place I really went all out was my home office, top-notch authentication gear, the best security system money could buy, and a custom-made vault that would make Fort Knox jealous. The irony of it all was wild. They thought I was being thrifty by helping them out. Mom would say stuff like, "It's so sweet of Stella to help. She must be living on nothing but ramen to afford it." Meanwhile, I had just authenticated a collection that earned me a commission bigger than their house payment. You know, the weird thing about making it big? The more successful you become, the harder it is to explain to people who've always seen you as less than them. It's like trying to describe colors to someone who's only ever seen black and white. They just don't get it. But by this point, my company was really thriving. We pretty much owned the high-end jewelry authentication game in the Midwest, And our reputation was, well, solid gold. Get it? But every Sunday, I'd still go to my parents' house for dinner, pretending to be Stella, the humble antique shop worker. The disconnect in my brain was getting ridiculous. I'd spend my mornings on calls with collectors from Dubai, my afternoons checking out pieces worth millions, and then my evenings at my parents' place. I'd wear carefully picked normal clothes, eat mom's overcooked pot roast, while Marilyn dominated the talk with tales of her latest marketing success, usually something like getting her boss's coffee without spilling it. A big moment happened one Sunday that I still remember clearly. I had just finished a huge deal, checking a missing Cartier piece that had been sitting in someone's safe deposit box for 40 years. The commission alone was 7 figures, like millions of dollars. I drove straight from that meeting to my parents' place, still feeling on top of the world from finding that treasure. My mom said, "Stella, honey, is everything all right? Your clothes look a bit worn out." "Oh, just trying to save some cash," I said, even though I was wearing a $3,000 cashmere sweater that I picked specifically because it looked subtle. Marilyn chimed in. "Well, if you'd gotten a real job instead of playing with old jewelry." Dad quickly said, "Marilyn, be nice. Not everyone can be as successful as you." I nearly choked on my pot roast trying not to laugh out loud. Around this time, I started sending monthly payments to my parents anonymously. Aunt Eleanor had told me they were having a hard time with Marilyn's college loans and medical bills. Mom also casually mentioned they might have to sell the house. I couldn't let that happen. Even with everything, it was still the house I grew up in. So, I started sending $5,000 to their bank account every month, without them knowing it was from me. When they asked, I said I was giving $1,000 and living on rice and beans. They figured the rest must be coming from Aunt Eleanor or some other family member. Marilyn, of course, took all the credit, saying she inspired everyone to help out. Watching Marilyn blow through my money. The money I sent helped them out, but it also had some strange side effects. My parents started treating me with this weird mix of pity and proud condescension, like I was some kind of noble poor person sacrificing everything for the family. Meanwhile, Marilyn's spending went wild. She'd show up for dinner with new, expensive handbags, claiming they were outlet bargains. They weren't. I can spot a real Gucci from 20 feet away. She started taking fancy vacations and bragging on Instagram about her blessed life. I'm pretty sure she was using my support money for her shopping sprees. But I kept my mouth shut. The irony of it all was just too perfect. Then came the drama about her Bachelor of Arts. Marilyn announced she wanted to go back to school for her Master of Business Administration. Another private university, naturally. Only the best for the golden child. Mom called me in tears, saying they couldn't afford it. I suggested, maybe Marilyn could look at state schools? They have good programs too. My mother insisted. "Oh, honey. You don't understand. Your sister needs to keep up certain appearances." But speaking of helping, could I ask you to increase my monthly contribution for a few years? I upped my contribution to $7,000 a month. It didn't make a dent in my bank accounts, but seeing them praise Marilyn for being ambitious about her education, while thinking I was eating ramen to help, that stung a little. Here's the real kicker. I was actually giving a guest lecture at the same business school Marilyn wanted to attend. My family had no idea. The dean himself had invited me to speak about luxury goods authentication and how to grow a business. I had to make up an excuse for why I couldn't make Sunday dinner that week. My own successes started to feel like a completely separate life, like I was some kind of business superhero with a secret identity. By day, I was running a multi-million-dollar authentication company. By night, well, on Sunday nights, I was just Stella, the disappointing daughter who worked at an antique shop. The breaking point, Thanksgiving. The weight of keeping my secret was getting heavier and heavier. Marilyn made nasty comments about my career more times than I could count. Each time, Mom would apologize to her friends for my simple lifestyle. Every time, Dad would suggest I get a real job. I think I always knew it would blow up eventually. I just didn't expect it to crash and burn so spectacularly on Thanksgiving. It all started 2 weeks before the holiday. Mom called, crying about her back pain. She had a slip disc, and the idea of cooking Thanksgiving dinner for 20 guests was too much for her. Now, I'd love to say I offered to help purely out of kindness. But honestly, I was just sick of pretending her dry turkey tasted good. My response, "Why don't I take care of the food this year? I can have it catered." She replied, "Oh, honey, we can't afford a caterer." My response, "Don't worry about the cost. I've been saving up." "Mom? Worried? You're not taking out a loan, are you?" I arranged everything with a high-end catering company I use for my business events. They do amazing work. The kind of food that makes you wonder why you ever bothered to cook yourself. It cost more than my parents thought I earned in 2 months, but whatever. Thanksgiving morning arrived, and I was feeling pretty good. I had my laptop with me because I needed to keep an eye on a big online auction in Hong Kong. There was this incredible Art Nouveau necklace up for sale, and I had a client who wanted me to authenticate it if they won the bid. Lunch arrived right on time, and everything was perfectly set up. Marilyn, of course, had to say something. Marilyn asked, "Store-bought stuffing, really, Stella? Mom's is so much better." This came from the girl who once set off the smoke alarm trying to make toast. Mom was apologizing to everyone for not cooking herself, but you could tell everyone was enjoying the meal. Marilyn shut up after tasting the maple glazed Brussels sprouts. Which, by the way, cost more per plate than her weekly grocery budget. I stepped away from dinner and dessert to check my laptop. The auction was getting intense, and I needed to be ready in case my client won. I set up in my old bedroom, which Mom had kept exactly the same since I was in high school. Meanwhile, Marilyn's room had been redone 3 times. That's when everything went south. I had left my authentication software running, with many tabs open showing different accounts and current deals. Marilyn walked in without knocking, some things never change, to borrow my phone charger. She saw my laptop screen and realized this was her chance to finally show everyone how pathetic her older sister really was. Marilyn, with a smirk, "Let's show everyone what Stella's really been up to." Before I could stop her, she grabbed my laptop and marched into the dining room. The big reveal. Imagine this, 20 people, including my aunts, uncles, cousins, and my parents, all stuffed with fancy turkey and a little tipsy from expensive wine, which they thought was cheap stuff from the grocery store. Marilyn's reaction: "Time to see what kind of important work Stella's doing on Thanksgiving." She flipped the laptop around like she'd won something, clearly planning to embarrass me with whatever small antique sales she thought I was working on. The room went completely silent. You could hear the fancy clock I got Mom for Christmas ticking quietly. She thought it was a fake. My computer screen showed my checking account balance, $12.4 million. A deal I was working on, $485,000. A recent sale, $1.2 million. From that Hong Kong auction, my company's profit report for the last 3 months, $4.2 million. Marilyn's face changed fast, showing 5 different feelings in about 3 seconds. The last look was a mix of shock and feeling sick. She actually swayed a bit. Mom asked, "Marilyn, honey, what is it?" Marilyn's voice cracked. She's rich. Stella's rich." Then everything went wild. If possible, the silence got even deeper. Then Mom started to giggle, like, really laugh. She said, "Don't be silly. Stella works at that little antique shop." I stood up slowly, smoothing out my plain cashmere sweater, which actually cost more than their monthly house payment. "Me, yes, actually, Mom. I own one of the biggest jewelry authentication companies in the country. All those years you called it an antique shop, I checked pieces worth millions. That little business you never asked about? It has offices in 3 cities." Dad nearly choked on his drink. Aunt Eleanor dropped her fork. Uncle started coughing like crazy. Then Mom's laugh turned into something else. Her face went red, then purple. She stood up so fast her chair fell over. Mom screamed, "You have millions and you let us struggle?" My response: "Struggle? I send you $7,000 every month." She snapped back, "While sitting on millions. Your sister has student loans." So, there it was. No congratulations, no, "Wow, we're so proud." Just anger that I hadn't given them more money. Marilyn started to cry, which, yeah, was surprising. She sobbed about how she deserved to know and how I had betrayed the family. Dad jumped in. "My dad, how could you be so selfish? Your parents, we raised you." That's when I lost it. Years of being ignored, years of being dismissed, years of being seen as the family screw-up. It all just exploded out of me. My response: "Raised me? You sent me away to grandma's every time I sneezed. You missed every win, every award, every big moment because Marilyn might feel left out. You never saved a penny for my college but took out loans for her private school. And now you're mad that I built something for myself?" The next 5 minutes were pure chaos. Mom was screaming about family duties. Dad was yelling about ungrateful kids. Marilyn kept switching between sobbing and demanding to know exactly how much money I had. Meanwhile, the fancy catering team tried to serve dessert, looking super uncomfortable. I grabbed my laptop, picked up my Hermes bag, which Mom had once complimented as a nice fake, and walked out. As I left, I could hear Mom talking about how to spend my money. Something about Marilyn's Bachelor of Arts and a new car. As I drove home in my nice, but not flashy, car, a limited edition BMW, my phone started blowing up with messages. The family group chat went nuts. Marilyn started posting on Facebook about hidden family money and selfish siblings. The days after Thanksgiving were like watching a slow-motion disaster. But the disaster was my family and my sanity was the wreckage. Let's start with the texts. Within an hour of leaving dinner, my phone had 47 missed calls and over 200 messages. Mom's text showed a wild change. 7:42 p.m. How dare you walk out on family? 8:15 p.m. We need to talk about this like adults. 9:03 p.m. Your sister deserves a share of your success. 10:30 p.m. I've already called a realtor about houses in better neighborhoods. 11:45 p.m. Why aren't you answering? This is your mother. Meanwhile, Marilyn became a full-blown social media warrior. She went all in on Facebook, writing this huge rant about how her millionaire sister had been secretly rich while watching her beloved family struggle. The comments section was insane. Distant cousins and old high school classmates I hadn't talked to in years suddenly had strong opinions about my character. But the part that really got me was when Marilyn actually posted. All those years of me trying to help Stella's career, giving her advice about moving up from that little antique shop, and she was secretly wealthy. That betrayal stung so much I almost threw my phone across the room. The only career advice she ever gave me? I suggest I try selling jewelry on Etsy. If you don't know the term, flying monkeys are when toxic family members get other people to guilt trip you. My Aunt Alana, whom I saw maybe once every 3 years, called to tell me that family is everything. Uncle Lars, who I'm pretty sure still thinks I'm 12, emailed me a long speech about how important it is to share wealth. Even my third cousin's wife's sister, how did she even get my number? That felt like she had to share her thoughts on family responsibility. But the real fun started when they showed up at my work. I walked in Monday morning to find Mom, Dad, and Marilyn sitting in our reception area. They told Marilyn, my receptionist, that they had an appointment for authentication services. Marilyn clutched her Michael Kors bag like it was genuinely worth something. The conversation went about as well as you'd expect. My mother. We've talked about it as a family. Me. A family discussion without the family member you're discussing? Mom. Ignoring me. And we think it's only fair that you set up trust funds for everyone. Marilyn chimed in. I need at least $2 million to start my new life properly. Dad added, and your mother and I would like to retire. We're thinking a beach house in Florida. This is me. Did you miss the part where I've been sending you $7,000 monthly? Marilyn shot back, that's nothing compared to what you have. You owe us. Me? You're thinking I owe you for what exactly? The years of being ignored? The missed graduations? The constant comparisons? Mom, don't be dramatic, Stella. We gave you everything. My response, no, I gave myself everything. And you know what? I'm done. Right there, in my own office lobby, I pulled out my phone and canceled the monthly transfers to their account. Mom gasped like I'd slapped her. Marilyn started her fake crying act, but she quickly stopped when she saw it wasn't working. Then things got ugly. They refused to leave. I had to call security. Seeing my 60-year-old mother being pulled out while yelling about ungrateful children was just bizarre. Marilyn asked if I wanted to press charges. I said no. But I did have their names added to the building's do not admit list. The harassment went on for weeks. New phone numbers, fake email addresses. They even tried to contact me through my company's customer service. I finally had to send them an official legal notice, threatening harassment charges. Mom then played her last card. She called Grandma Ember. But here's the thing about Grandma Ember, she's smarter than all of them put together. How did she respond? Good for Stella. About time someone in this family made it on their own terms. Mom didn't speak with her for 2 months after that. It's been 6 months since that crazy Thanksgiving. I moved to a new place with much better security. I changed all my phone numbers. And my company? We're doing better than ever. Turns out, my family drama actually brought in some really important clients who respected how careful I was with my privacy. Marilyn keeps posting these shady updates online about toxic wealth and family betrayal. From what I've heard, she's even starting her own jewelry authentication business. Good luck with that, seriously. Mom and Dad finally stopped trying to reach me after my lawyer sent them an official letter explaining what harassment charges would mean for them. Now, they're telling everyone they never wanted my money anyway, and that they're praying for my salvation. Classic. You know what the best part is? For the first time in my whole life, I feel truly free. No more awkward Sunday dinners packed with hidden insults. No more pretending my successes were smaller than they were just to spare their feelings. No longer bankrolling the Marilyn show. My therapist thinks I'm finally setting healthy boundaries. I just say I'm finally living my truth. So, that's my story, Reddit. Thanks for letting me get it all out. A big shout out to the catering company who sent me a Christmas card saying that Thanksgiving meal was the best part of their year. A quick update for common questions. Yes, I'm still seeing a therapist. No, I definitely don't regret cutting them off. And yes, Grandma Ember is doing great. She's coming to visit next month to help me organize a new collection of jewels. One last thing for Marilyn, because I know you're probably reading this. That Cartier bracelet you're rocking in your latest Instagram post? Totally a fake. Just saying. So, that's my story. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that sometimes, the best thing you can do for yourself is to build your own path, quietly and fiercely. Don't wait for your family to recognize your worth or celebrate your wins if they're too busy with someone else's spotlight. Your achievements are yours, and your peace is more valuable than any strained family dinner. Learn to be your own cheerleader, set your boundaries, and live authentically, even if it means stepping away from those who dim your light. What do you all think? Have any of you dealt with family dynamics like this? I'd love to hear your experiences and opinions in the comments below.